People searched every part of the lighthouse. They found nothing that explained what had happened. No message, no clear clue. More than 100 years have passed, and the mystery still has no answer. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. In December 1900, 3 lighthouse keepers disappeared from one of the most remote islands in Scotland. No distress signal was sent, no bodies were ever found. When the relief crew finally reached the lighthouse, everything seemed strangely quiet. The lamp had gone dark. The men were gone. More than a century later, investigators still cannot say with certainty what happened on the Flannan Isles. This is their true story. Far beyond Scotland's western coastline lies a small group of rocky islands known as the Flannan Isles. Surrounded by powerful Atlantic waves, the islands are isolated, steep, and difficult to reach even in calm weather. For centuries, sailors feared these waters because hidden reefs and violent storms made navigation extremely dangerous. To improve safety, authorities decided to build a lighthouse on the largest island. Construction of the lighthouse was completed in 1899 after years of difficult work. Heavy stone, steel equipment, and supplies had to be transported across rough seas before being carried up steep cliffs by hand. Once finished, the lighthouse became one of the most modern navigation stations in Scotland. Every night, its powerful light guided passing ships safely through one of the Atlantic's most hazardous routes. Working at the lighthouse required calm minds and steady routines. 3 keepers lived on the island for several weeks before another team arrived to replace them. Each day followed the same schedule. They cleaned the great lens, checked the equipment, recorded the weather, and made sure the light shone every night. When storms arrived, the island became completely isolated as powerful Atlantic waves pounded the cliffs below. The final 3 keepers assigned to the station were James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. Each arrived with different experience, but together they carried the same responsibility. Every passing vessel depended on the lighthouse remaining visible through darkness, rain, and heavy seas. Missing even a single night could place countless sailors at risk while crossing the dangerous waters surrounding the islands. During the first weeks of December 1900, the lighthouse continued operating normally. Routine reports showed nothing unusual, and passing ships expected to see its familiar beam after sunset. Then something changed. Several vessels traveling through the area reported that the light was no longer visible. At first, poor weather seemed like a reasonable explanation. However, as more time passed, concern continued to grow. Storms prevented supply vessels from reaching the island for several days. Strong winds and rough seas made landing impossible, delaying the scheduled relief crew. While the lighthouse remained dark, ships passing through the area received no explanation for the missing signal. Nobody on the mainland yet understood that something far more unusual than bad weather might have occurred on the isolated island. On December 26th, relief keeper Joseph Moore finally approached the island aboard the supply vessel Hesperus. Even before stepping ashore, he noticed something unusual. No keeper waited at the landing platform. Normally, one of the men would be ready to greet arriving visitors and assist with unloading supplies. This time, the dock remained completely silent despite the vessel's arrival. Joseph Moore reached the island that afternoon. He walked toward the lighthouse alone. The main door was closed. He opened it and stepped inside. The rooms looked clean and quiet. The lamps were ready for use. The furniture was in place. The beds were neatly made. Food still sat on the kitchen table. It looked as if someone had left only moments before. Moore searched the entire lighthouse. The three keepers were gone. The search quickly expanded beyond the lighthouse itself. Moore examined nearby paths, storage buildings, and the rocky shoreline. There were no voices, no footprints leading away from the station, and no immediate signs explaining where the three men had gone. Within hours, the disappearance transformed from a delayed shift change into one of the most enduring mysteries in maritime history. News of the disappearance quickly reached the Northern Lighthouse Board. Officials immediately launched a formal investigation. Robert Muirhead, an experienced superintendent, traveled to the island to inspect the station personally. His task was straightforward. He needed to determine whether the keepers had left voluntarily, suffered an accident, or encountered some unexpected event that had never been reported. Inside the lighthouse, Muirhead found no evidence of violence or forced entry. Valuable equipment remained untouched, and personal belongings had not been removed. The station itself appeared surprisingly organized. Nothing suggested panic inside the building, yet outside, investigators noticed several details that raised new questions about the keepers' final hours on the island. At the western landing area, equipment used for unloading supplies had been damaged. A storage box had shifted from its original position, and ropes were scattered nearby. The platform showed signs that powerful waves had struck the shoreline with tremendous force. Investigators carefully documented every detail, while considering whether severe weather could explain the strange scene they had discovered. One observation attracted particular attention. One keeper's heavy waterproof coat remained hanging inside the lighthouse. Experienced lighthouse keepers rarely stepped outside during bad weather without proper protection. If one man had left without his coat, investigators wondered whether the others had followed him unexpectedly. That possibility became one of several important questions discussed during the official inquiry. Attention soon turned toward the weather itself. Historical records confirmed that powerful Atlantic storms had affected the region during that period. Enormous waves were capable of striking cliffs with surprising force. Some researchers believe the keepers may have been inspecting storm damage near the landing platform when an unusually large wave swept across the rocks before they had time to escape. That explanation appeared reasonable, but it left several unanswered questions. Lighthouse procedures generally required at least one keeper to remain inside while others worked outdoors. Leaving the station completely unattended would have violated established practice. Investigators therefore questioned why all three men seemed to have disappeared at nearly the same time. Over the years, some writers focused on entries from the Lighthouse weather log. According to later accounts, the journal described unusually strong winds and emotional reactions from one of the keepers. Those reports inspired countless books and documentaries. However, historians have pointed out that some widely repeated diary passages cannot be confirmed in surviving official records. Because of those uncertainties, modern researchers rely primarily on verified evidence collected during the original investigation. The damaged landing area, severe weather, and the condition of the lighthouse remain the strongest documented facts. Everything beyond those observations belongs to interpretation rather than established history. That distinction remains important when examining one of Scotland's most famous unsolved disappearances. As decades passed, many alternative theories appeared. Some suggested secret military activity, while others imagined encounters with smugglers or unknown visitors. More dramatic stories introduced supernatural explanations that captured public imagination. Yet none of those ideas has been supported by reliable historical evidence. They remain speculation rather than conclusions reached through documented investigation. Most maritime historians continue to view an accident caused by extreme ocean conditions as the most likely explanation. Even so, certainty has never been possible. Without eyewitnesses, physical remains, or additional evidence, no investigator could fully reconstruct the keeper's final moments. The Atlantic left behind only fragments of a story that has never been completely explained. Interest in the mystery never disappeared. Newspapers continued discussing the case for years, and later it inspired books, documentaries, and historical studies. Each new generation returned to the same unanswered question. What happened to the three keepers on that isolated island? Despite countless discussions, no newly discovered evidence has ever changed the basic facts established during the original investigation. Modern experts have carefully re-examined the geography of the island. The western landing area sits below steep cliffs that face the open Atlantic. During severe storms, waves can rise unexpectedly and strike the rocks with enormous force. Researchers have suggested that even experienced keepers could have underestimated conditions while working close to the shoreline. Some engineers believe the damaged equipment supports that possibility. Heavy storage boxes and securing ropes appeared to have been moved by powerful water rather than ordinary wind. If the keepers had attempted to protect supplies before another wave arrived, they may have found themselves trapped in an extremely dangerous position with little chance of escape. Even if that explanation is correct, one important mystery remains. Why were all three keepers outside together? Standard operating procedures usually required at least one man to remain inside the lighthouse. Historians have proposed several practical reasons, but no surviving document explains exactly why the station appears to have been left without anyone on duty. The remote location also complicated every stage of the investigation. By the time the relief crew arrived, several days had already passed since the keepers were last expected to report. Wind, rain, and powerful waves could easily have erased many signs that might have helped investigators understand the sequence of events more clearly. This mystery left behind very little evidence. No one saw what happened to the three keepers. No photographs captured their final hours. No bodies were ever found. Because of that, investigators had very little to examine. Most of their work focused on the lighthouse, the damaged landing area, and the nearby coastline. Even today, those remain the most important pieces of evidence. That lack of evidence has allowed the mystery to survive for more than a century. Every generation has examined the same facts from a slightly different perspective. While theories have changed over time, the available evidence has remained remarkably consistent. The investigation still depends on observations recorded during those first days on the island in December 1900. Today, the Flannan Isles remain largely uninhabited. The lighthouse has been automated and permanent keepers are no longer required. Visitors occasionally reach the islands, but the remote landscape looks much as it did more than 100 years ago. Standing among the cliffs, it is easy to understand how isolated the station once felt. The disappearance of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur has become an important chapter in Scottish maritime history. Museums, historians, and lighthouse organizations continue preserving the records connected with the case. Rather than promoting sensational explanations, most focus on the documented investigation and the remarkable circumstances surrounding the unexplained disappearance. More than 120 years have now passed since the lighthouse fell silent. Technology has advanced beyond anything the keepers could have imagined, yet the central question remains unanswered. Without new evidence, historians can only compare the known facts with the most reasonable explanations. The Atlantic has never revealed what truly happened on the Flannan Isles. The official investigation never claimed to solve the mystery with complete certainty. Instead, it presented the most reasonable explanation supported by the available evidence, powerful waves, dangerous terrain, and the damaged landing area pointed toward a tragic accident. Even so, investigators acknowledge that several important questions cannot be answered with confidence. That may be the reason the story is still remembered today. It shows that some real events never receive a complete explanation. Not every mystery is solved with time. Sometimes the evidence is simply too limited. Even after more than a century of study, the final moments of the three keepers remain unknown. The Flannan Isles case also highlights the challenges faced by lighthouse keepers. They worked far from their families, surrounded by harsh weather and constant responsibility. Every night they protected ships from hidden dangers along the coast. Their work often passed unnoticed, yet countless lives depended on the light remaining visible through darkness and storms. Even today, people continue to study this case. Historians still examine old reports and official documents. They hope that one new clue may one day explain what happened. So far, no new evidence has been found. The disappearance of the three keepers remains one of Britain's best-known maritime mysteries, with no clear answer after more than a century. When the relief crew arrived, they expected an ordinary shift change. Instead, they found an empty lighthouse overlooking the Atlantic. James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur were never seen again. More than a century has passed, yet their fate remains unknown. Some mysteries slowly fade with time. The story of the Flannan Isles has done exactly the opposite, continuing to intrigue historians and audiences around the world.